Okay, good morning for the Scott County Board of Commissioners meeting for August 2nd, 2022. Would you all please rise for the pledge?
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, again, it's August 2nd, 2022, the Scott County Board of Commissioner meeting. Is there any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, or hearing none, we all have received the minutes. Are there any additions, deletions, or correction to the minutes from July 19th? If not, is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So made.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
And there's a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Recognition of interested citizens. This is limited to items not on the agenda and limited to 5 minutes per person or subject. If anyone would like to speak, come on up to the podium and let us know what you think. Is there anybody here or online? Nobody online? Anyone in the audience? Nobody? Okay. Thank you. Then we're going to move to number 5, new employee recognition. So this morning we had Commissioner Breckman-Wecky and I had 5. If you'd like to come up here and just introduce yourself, give your name, what you do, where you came from, that type of stuff. And remember, like I said earlier, there's 6 billion people possibly watching.
All right.
So maybe.
I think he means 6.
6.7? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm Adam Jessen. I'm a project manager in the Transportation Services Group. I'm going to be helping with delivering the Arpa projects, which we're going to get an update about right after this. I worked in the private sector for 9 years as an engineer, roadway design, project management background. I'm from Savage originally. I live in Hopkins now. 2 kids, 2 dogs. And yeah, that's my story.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Robin Moles. I'm a field probation officer in the adult high-risk unit. I've been here for a week. Prior to that, I worked at the JAF part-time a couple years ago. I worked for Wisconsin as a probation and parole agent. I also worked for the Minnesota Department of Corrections as a correction officer, corrections teaching assistant, and a Sentencing Senior Service crew leader. And then I was at Dakota County as an assistant probation officer, originally from Woodbury, Minnesota, and I live in North St. Paul. We have 2 dogs. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marielle Carlson. I'm doing case management in child protection. I'm originally from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Prior to this, I am a Packers fan. Prior to this, I was completing my master in social work at the U. I lived in Minneapolis for a little bit and moved around teaching English abroad. Yeah, and I live in Minneapolis, so I commute down to Scott County.
Okay. So now, of course, you're a Viking fan now that you're here, or is that?
Never.
Oh.
Should we see if we can get her a Vikings number 4 jersey?
Hi,
Good morning.
I'm Erin Whalen. I'm an administrative specialist with Health and Human Services. Originally from Minneapolis, but my husband and I and my 4 kids live in Savage.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, I am Kathy Asinchak. I currently work in the mental health care unit as administrative specialist. I have 2 boys, and I just got a French bulldog puppy who keeps me very busy. So yeah, and I currently live in Shakopee.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bianca Wester. I'm the newest housing coordinator with Scott County, working on a team with Peter Goldstein, and we'll be adding 1 more person. So very exciting that our housing team is growing. Previously, I worked at Oak Tree Support Services. We were a statewide housing stabilization services provider, as well as some waivered housing services. And then prior to that, I worked at Stepping Stone Emergency Housing, a homeless shelter in Anoka. So I've been working in housing and resolving homelessness for about 7 years now. This month is a year in my house in Plymouth with my partner. We're getting married in like 2 or 3 weeks. And we have 2 dogs there as well. So.
Okay. Great.
Thank you.
Well, welcome all of you to Scott County. You know, some of you lived here or didn't live, but you all came back here to Scott County to work and, or to live or whatever. So anyhow, we appreciate that. Thank you. We are going to move on now to number 6, to receive an ARPA update.
All right, good morning. Andy Hingebaut, Transportation Services Division. Here to give a quick update on the ARPA program. The last update was a couple weeks ago, so I'll try to go quick because I don't think the numbers have changed a whole lot since then. And as a reminder, the ARPA dollars were allocated to the county about $28.9 million through the federal government back in 2021. And the monies do have to be expended by the end of December 2024 or obligated via contract through December of 2026. And to date, about $7.2 million have been committed through the board in some previous actions. We have been working through developing the scopes and charters, and a lot of the projects are moving into project development at this point. There are a couple of the bigger potential value dollar projects that are still being scoped and kind of fine-tuned over the course of this year. And in addition to that, a number of staff positions were allocated with this money to help address some of the court backlogs and some of the issues that the pandemic helped kind of contribute and exacerbate. And that's what this chart shows. So of the positions, they've all been filled at this point. Many of them are up to that about 3-year to the end of 2024 committed through the ARPA dollars. There are some that are couple that are more of a 1.5-year position as well that goes along with that. So again, of the kind of funds allocated for these staff positions, about $3 million of it were about $500,000 or so that have been spent to date. This list provides a summary of funds that are committed. So these projects and programs have been approved and authorized by the board, and we've been moving forward with them. Some of them are distribution of funds to other agencies. Again, the disability housing is an example. We're working with the Scott CDA on that. They've been going through the process of working through the state's kind of super housing fund program to kind of work through that. And as we kind of work through that, we'll start to get that agreement figured out so that those dollars can then be allocated over to that program. The educational neglect prevention diversion program is another example where that project is, or that service is in process now, and so we'll be starting to see more of those funds being expended here. There's usually a couple month delay or so that can kind of go along with that on what we show here versus what's been spent so far. Projects in process are the ones that we've been working to kind of move forward and execute on. Again, a couple of the libraries, Elko New Market and Belle Plaine, are being implemented this year. We've been moving forward on the Family Resource Center, looking at the Marshall Road Transit Station as a new location for that. Cedar Lake Farm Regional Park Campground, we had a open house with the community a couple of weeks ago and had some feedback from that one, I guess I could say. So we're working through those issues right now, trying to help address the comments that they've provided. And primarily it's related to a road access off of, providing a new park entrance off of a different, off of a public street, I guess, that serves the neighborhood. And so there's some concerns that go along with that. So that's the next step, is we are working to resolve those issues, responding to the comments. We've looked at the different options to help kind of provide feedback back to them on what the issues are and what the opportunities really are. And so we will be reaching out with them shortly to work through those issues.
Okay.
If I could ask a
Yep,
question
yep,
on
yep.
that, or make a comment really. I'm hoping that either in a mini workshop update, when we're having all these workshops, if we could devote 10 or 15 minutes to what are the possible solutions. I know most of their feedback was on access, road access, and safety of accessing the campground and camper cabin area. So it's a transportation issue, but I'm hoping that we could hear more about that in some kind of a mini update and a workshop.
Okay, yep. Sounds good. Commissioner Breckman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Andy, libraries extended access. I know Elko New Market's next, and then Belle Plaine hopefully getting done this calendar year. Do you have kind of target months that'll happen? That people are, where are we at on that?
Chris can probably better answer that. Is that all right, Chris?
Good morning, Mr. Vice Chair, Commissioners. The libraries are set up to open at 6. Good morning. The library open access is scheduled to happen at 6-month intervals. So Belle Plaine is scheduled for December of 2022. Elko New Market was pushed back, it's running a little bit late because of a supply chain issue. But Belle Plaine will move forward by December of 2022, and then one library every 6 months after that.
Okay, thanks. So Elko should happen in the next, whenever we get the supplies.
We have we're anticipating a September 1st launch.
Wonderful, thank you.
Projects under consideration, these are the ones that we're still kind of scoping out what the project could be, what the opportunities are. And a couple examples of this: Bonavista Terrace, utilities extension to the manufactured home community. We have been working with the property owners on that. They have now selected an engineering firm to help with that feasibility study. So over the next 12 weeks or so, we should start to get a better handle on what the options are, what the potential costs would be for that potential project there. And similar with the Clear Lake Regional Park campground compliance, we do have the initial results back from the feasibility study for the different utility options with that project as well, that we should be able to roll out that information shortly here to help the board give direction on how to proceed with that project. Faith-based housing, there was another meeting last week with the faith-based communities, kind of that next workshop that happened, so more to come with that as well. And we do have a dashboard to kind of share this information. It is online on the county's website under the Arpa page that gives a breakdown, similar charts like this, and then a description of each project and the kind of estimated funding that's allocated with that. So to help be a little bit more transparent and share this information with others, that is available on the county's website.
If I can make a comment on that.
Yeah, Commissioner Rock.
Greater MSP has created a federal funding hub, and so you can actually go on and see how every one of the metro counties has spent the ARPA dollars. So I would suggest if we have projects that fall off and they're not going to work as far as funding, maybe there's some ideas that can be gleaned just by looking at what other counties have done. So
That's a good idea.
I would just suggest looking at that. I don't know if staff can help me get the link to that to the other commissioners, the federal funding hub.
And Mr. Chair, I think NACO has something very similar, so you can look at things all over the country if we want to look at both those links.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, and we did help contribute to the greater MSPs. I think their data is as of like mid-March or so. So I think it will be getting updated again, and we'll provide that information to help keep our information up to date and be able to look at what other counties and other agencies are doing as well. Similar charts, again, not much has changed since you've seen this last, but kind of the breakdown on where the dollars are spent and allocated as of right now. in terms of what's been committed, what's been spent, and what's been contracted. And, for the next year, these will start to look considerably different. That's all I have for the day. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, Andy, the Cedar Lake deal, you guys have developed something or are developing that plan for the road?
So we presented a concept plan for the site to show how the campground site would be laid out. It basically took the master plan to
That was
more
at that group
detail.
meeting here 2-3 weeks ago, yeah?
Yeah, that's what we presented, and so that showed a new driveway entrance off of Cedar Lane.
And the people there didn't want a new one, they wanted like one. Is that correct, or?
Yes, the residents off of Cedar Lane are concerned about, the park and park users, accessing off of that via the main entrance, which is about a half mile to the west, where the larger parking lot is. And so this was an extensive issue that was looked at 10 years ago as part of the master plan. And unfortunately, the lake is, this is the south shore of the lake, and the property does narrow up, and there are a lot of things that are identified in the master plan that if a road was to go in that way, it would impact. It could potentially make it harder to do a event center at the barn at some point, because a road would take out where that open space is. There's a lot of issues to look at in addition to access off of County Road 2, and the current entrance, which is Juniper, which isn't the long-term road location either. So there's a number of issues that,
Mr. Chairman, I also think we need to just treat ourselves like we would a developer. If a developer was coming in here, we would have required a left turn lane and the appropriate right turn lane. So I think if we let the highway department look at the intersection and make the recommendations, and we treat ourselves just like we would anybody else developing property, I think we can get the geometrics of that intersection appropriately so that it works better for everybody.
Okay.
And that's what we've been looking at over the last couple of weeks to help provide a better answer that we can give back to them. So hopefully it helps them feel more comfortable. I don't know if we'll be able to answer every issue, but we'll try to work through it as much as we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so that was an update. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on into consent agenda, and we have 6 today, I believe. 7.1, adopt resolution number 2022-174, approving a conditional use permit amendment for Interlock Concrete Products to construct a 45,000 square foot building. Interlock Concrete Products applicant and PF Real Estate LLP property owner in Section 4 of Sand Creek Township. 7.2, adopt resolution number 2022-185, authorizing a budget amendment and an amendment to the agreement with SRF Consulting Group Incorporated for the Bluff Drive Trunk Highway 169 overpass project. 7.3, adopt resolution number 2022-186, authorizing a budget amendment and a second contract increase for the County Highway 27 expansion project. 7.4, set a public hearing for 9 a.m. on August 16th, 2022 to consider action on conditional use permit number 616-C-8 issued to Mid-America Festivals Corporation to operate the Minnesota Renaissance Festival and Trail of Terror. 7.5, approve the 1-day to 4-day temporary on-sale liquor license for Parish of St. Joachim and Ann in Louisville Township. 7.6, approve payroll processing of personnel actions. Those are the 6 items on consent. Are there any you would like to have pulled for discussion or to talk about? And if not, is there a motion to approve those?
Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
I fully want to pull it, but, excuse me, 7.4, I thought we were pushing for this to occur earlier than the 16th, because if things don't go well, isn't that like 1 week before the start of the?
Yeah,
Renaissance?
Leslie, go ahead.
So, Mr. Chairman, we are working with them. This is to set it on the 16th. If the work is not completed by then staff would continue to recommend the revocation of that. It appears from the discussions between staff, the township, and the Renaissance Festival, the work should be done by August 12th. So we clearly will know by the 16th if the work is completed or not. So we are recommending we keep this on here and set the public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the consent agenda.
And there's a motion to approve those 6 items. Is there a second?
Second.
And there's a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Committee reports and commissioner updates. We'll start with Commissioner Brecky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since our last board meeting, I attended the National Association of Counties Conference, July 20th through the 24th in Colorado. Some notable things, the first day of that, a group of us from Minnesota went and toured family resource centers in Colorado. They've been around for over 20 years now, so just really interesting to see how they've evolved and developed, and I'll be meeting with staff soon to talk more about that. On the NACO, I'm on the NACO Human Services and Education Committee, so on the second day of the conference, we met at the Adams County Human Services Center, a new human services center. Very interesting to see how they're delivering human services. It was good to see that many of the things that they've incorporated into their building design and how they're working with the public are very similar to what we did with our new building, so also good to see. So there'll be other things coming up that I'll keep sharing with staff and folks from that conference. July 26th, we had county board workshop. July 27th, busy day. We started out at Scott County Fair for the opening breakfast. I also volunteered at the fair that day. Middle of the day, Leslie and Chris Harder and I had a meeting with Mike Redmond, the Shakopee Schools superintendent, to really just talk very directly about the early childhood screening and some immediate opportunities this summer. I think it was a very good connection, and some things, hopefully, Chris is shaking her head, are happening as a result of that meeting, where we had some opportunities to do some work quickly this summer and catch some kids and hopefully make sure that they have all the resources they need. Also on July 27th, CAP Finance Committee meeting. Over the weekend, I volunteered at the Scott County Fair several times, including working the county booth on Sunday, where our acting chair received a comment. You should hold that up. It says, "Tom is awesome." I'm not sure if they meant what Tom they meant, but, you know, I'm glad you got that comment
right
card.
It certainly couldn't have been me.
Yesterday, August 1st, Leslie and I met with the mayor and city administrator of Jordan, just to our quarterly meeting to talk about issues. Of course, most of the meeting we talked about the road projects there and what's happening with MnDOT and the design process right now. This morning, I joined Commissioner Wolf at the new employee welcome, and we also had 2 ditch board meetings ready this morning, the joint ditch and the Scott County ditch board meeting. And that's the end of my report.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Brecky. I'll go to Commissioner Beer.
Thank you very much. On this 25th of July, I dialed into my first Community Health Improvement Committee, and too bad our chair is not here, the former SHIP, right? Isn't that what it's called? It used to be the old SHIP. So I was going to give him a little ship about that. 7/26, we had our workshop. What's that?
How'd you pronounce that?
I pronounced it exactly the way I was supposed to, SHIP. 26 was our workshop. 27th, fair breakfast, always fun to kick that off. Farm Family was introduced, of the year, was introduced there, so nice job on that. Later that day, mosquito control. Mosquito control is going well. The drought helps that. So it's kind of a blessing curse kind of thing. 28th, Faith Roundtable. Was that our third? I'm looking at Leslie. Was that our third Faith Roundtable? So our third meeting, bringing faith, nonprofit, business leaders to the table about, hey, how can you engage back into the role of governing, so to speak? Not governing, but helping people. And in our third meeting, we've rolled out some seed money to allow people, those groups, to do what they do. And so that's kind of, in government time, that's warp speed. So really excited to see what's going to come of that. I think an email or letter went out yesterday to the folks that want to potentially dig into that seed money and see what their options and ideas are. So we'll know that by the end of the month. So really excited to see how that's going to roll out. Last night, Prior Lake City Council, I was there for the council meeting. They did adopt a moratorium for the THC, which we'll be discussing in a workshop setting. So other cities have already gone that route, and we'll go that route, and we'll be talking about it in half an hour. Earlier this morning, as was mentioned, the 2 ditch boards. With that, that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Beer. Commissioner Ulrich.
The 19th, RTF, special meeting discussed hiring an interim director. And as you know, Mike Breeze is retiring, and he'll be working August, September with our interim director, which I'll, at another meeting where we actually did hire the interim director, Chris Meyer from Belle Plaine, and he will be the interim, and he will be kind of mentored by Mike Breeze, August and September. He is a candidate for the full position. We have a study going on operations, staffing, and really looking at the whole operation. So we won't know what our staffing model will be or what we need to do to be competitive with other training centers and so forth till that study is complete. So I don't know if we'll make a decision on the final hire yet this year, maybe, but maybe it will extend a little bit in the early part of next year. 7/21, Live Learner Steering Committee. Later that same day, the Greater MSP Board of Directors meeting. They're merging with the Itasca project. I don't know if you're aware of, say, the last 20 years, the Itasca project has been a lot of business leaders that have been analyzing significant issues in the metro area like transportation or childcare or whatever. And so they're merging together, and I hope some of their first studies, I hope they'll do stuff that's really at the core of Greater MSP's charter, that things like maybe workforce readiness or educational preparedness, things like that. I hope that's what they'll study. County Board Workshop on the 26th, RTF special meeting where we did hire Chris Meyer on the 26th, 27th. Greater MSP Commissioners meeting, what I would have reported there, I already did talk about the federal funding hub that's available to look at and see what the counties are doing. 27th, MVTA, kind of an interesting item came up. There is a transportation policy plan work group for the Met Council. It's a committee that really studies the whole transportation policy plan, and it's a big deal. It guides what we do in transportation. Everything has to conform to that plan. Well, anyhow, there's a group that's formed, a committee that's meeting monthly, and it's a remote meeting, but it's troubling that the ST representative that we wanted to have be from STA was Luther Winder, and we were told he can't be on, while Wes Kustra is his counterpart with Metro Transit. And they basically are both directors of transit operations, but Wes can be on, and Luther can't be on. And also, there's 5 Met Council reps on that committee, so it is troubling. I think it needs to be pursued. It's not right. It's just not right. Anyhow, I'll leave it at that. The 28th, the roundtable discussion with faith leaders. It was really interesting. The speaker we had from Sarasota, Florida, talked about how they're providing beds for the homeless, and it's through a church, but I think it's a separate nonprofit alongside the church. But they provide 400 beds on any given night for the homeless, which is 1/3 of the beds that are provided for their entire county. And I'm guessing in the warmer climes, they might have more homeless than we do on a percentage basis, because their county is about the size of Dakota County, and Sarasota is about the size of Lakeville. And yet they provide 400 beds, and which is really amazing. And they have over the years shifted from not working with the county, not probably trusting each other, to really working quite closely with the county and a high level of trust between the county and their operation. There is just no question that between each other and it's working seamlessly. So the faith leaders heard that, and I wish more of our human service folks had been there to hear that, but we'll get that message, some way to discuss that. But because sometimes there is a not working together. Although our faith community yet has not taken on the challenge of this, but I think they will. And I did point out at that meeting that sometimes government is slow, or you might perceive it as being slow. And we've had meetings, and are we going to do anything? And I pointed out, look, we can already point to one item of success as a result of the conversation. A house that was going to be torn down is most likely going to be fixed because of the volunteer labor and the low-cost way they can get supplies and stuff. So this transitional house will be, it'll become a transitional house for some people. And so that is success of the conversation already. We hope for much larger success. On the first, Mobility Management Board, that's into my report.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Ulrich. And for my report, on the 25th, met with the administrator. After that, had the WMO, Watershed Management Organization. 26th was the workshop. 27th to 29th, maybe even 30th, the Scott County Fair. It was actually pretty nice. We had the breakfast on Wednesday morning, and then Wednesday evening. It was actually pretty busy at the fair every night I was here. So it was even tough to find parking on Friday and Saturday night. So pretty good. The round table on the 28th. Vermilion River Joint Powers was also on the 28th. Last night, Prior Lake City Council met. I met with for the workshop. I wasn't there for the THC, but in the workshop they talked about their levy possibilities, and it could be 13.3. Depends if they get this grant, the SAFER grant for the fire department to have a full-time, 12 full-time fire department people there. And I think they had one guy or one or two hired at one point and all ready to go, and they backed out. So finding 12 people to do that is going to be tougher than they think. So anyhow, then Credit River met and they adopted the moratorium of THC. Cedar Lake had their monthly meeting, very quiet there. And then this morning, the new employee welcome and the ditches meeting. And then that is my report. Move on to the county administrator update. Leslie.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just real quickly, I wanted to update the board that Brad Davis has been doing some research on the insurance and lids and has found that MCIT is one that does that as a backdrop and very much in the kind of ballpark that folks had originally discovered. So Brad and his team is continuing to research and answer some of the questions that the lid had out of that work session. So we'll keep you apprised of that as that moves forward as well. The only other thing was that faith leaders conversation was, I thought, very interesting, and I know that Chris and her staff have sent out some follows up now and see if there's some ideas and some proposals to move that forward and how that would be consistent with your ARPA goals of, some capital, things you'd see in 10 years and how we could partner on that. So that has been mentioned. Following this meeting, we have an edibles discussion and how that impacts the county. A third quarter update on the building. We're getting near probably the end of having to have these updates. And then finally, the remainder of the day will be spent on department budget presentations. So that's the end of what I have.
Okay, any questions or comments for our administrator? Okay, with that, let's move to our attorney. Is there a reason to recess today?
Mr. Chair, there is not.
Okay, there is not. Okay, I wanted to recognize, I see Councilmember Jody Brennan is here today from Shakopee. And with that, again, as Leslie had said, we have the THC edible discussion, the third quarter building update, and the budget presentations we're going to do in a workshop. So is there any other business? And if there's not, is there a motion to adjourn? There's a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
And there's a second, okay. So I just had three things I wrote down here. Don't text and drive. Thank you for Mary Keene. Happy birthday for the donuts. And Gary Brugenthies, one of our employees, has some health issues, and keep him in your thoughts and prayers, if you would. So with that, all in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.